Everyone, welcome back to Breslov Efrat here at Shirat David, Baruch Hashem. And, we're in the middle of our shir in Likutei Halachas, Hilchas Tzitzis. We're in the middle of Halacha Hey. And we started Ois Zayin yesterday, 7. And we weren't able to finish. It's quite lengthy, and there's a lot of material in there. So we want to just make sure we cover it. And again, if anyone has any questions or anything, you can always... you can either send me a WhatsApp at 516-851-8855. You can send me an email at chaimfreud@me.com, as you've been doing, and always feel free to do that. Okay. Aval al yedei teichocha yecholim lefamim lepoyel yoiseh chas v'sholom. So yesterday we were talking about this idea of rebuke, right? So if you have somebody that's a worthy person to rebuke, right? If the person is worthy to rebuke, like we use the example of Moshe Rabbeinu, so then that person rebuking can not only help the person to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to find his way back, but he can help the person that all of his iniquities that he has done up until that point, he doesn't discard them, he holds on to them, and he slowly transforms them all to merits, okay? But now the problem is who's worthy to give rebuke today? Is someone really worthy to give rebuke today? That's what happens now. The Rebbe says, sometimes if a person gives rebuke and it's not done in the right way, the person can be knocked down even more. Oh, you see what you just did? This is terrible what you just... Really? And the guy feels broken. The guy feels hurt. Oh, this guy's telling me that I did something wrong. What is this? And he said, you know what? If I did this wrong, and then he realized, you know how many times I did this thing wrong? You know how many times I did this wrong? You know how terrible I really am? So, I throw the towel in. And people do that. So we have to be very, very careful when we tell somebody something and how to say it to them, so it doesn't have a negative effect. Right? We want to have always, whenever we talk to someone, we want to have a positive result. We don't want to have a negative result. True? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And so the question is, how do you do that? Because we said yesterday, when the tzaddik, like Moshe Rabbeinu, gives the rebuke, he puts a beautiful odor, and he covers over all of the iniquities. He covers them over, so they have a nice odor. But if the stuff smells, and you stoke it, you move it, then it really starts to stink. So if you go to a person and you tell him what he did wrong, and you don't have the right intentions, you don't have the right ability, you don't have the right capability to do this. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to wake up within that person all of his wrongdoings till now, and he's going to feel terrible. His poor soul is going to feel weaker. It's going to weaken his soul. It's not going to strengthen his soul. It'll wind up weakening the soul. Rabbi Nachman spoke about so much in the lesson. We see and we can sense. We see and we can sense this. Sometimes we give rebuke to ourselves. Yeah? Right? We say,
not in the right way, usually.
Sometimes we're hard on ourselves, right? We're very, very hard on ourselves. Right? We're very judgmental on ourselves, and we give rebuke to ourselves. But sometimes that rebuke that we're giving to ourselves, we think it's from the Yetzer Tov, but it's from the Yetzer Hara. We think it's something, I'm doing this to become better. But it's really a device of the Yetzer Hara to give that rebuke in that way, to knock me down, to again, my koyach hamedama. In other words, to give me that sense in my mind that I'm really involved with all these bad things. I fill the mind with all of that bad stuff that I'm involved in.
You must be a real tzaddik. I say that because when I
the Rebbe's a tzaddik. The Rebbe's a tzaddik.
Well, but you're also...
The Rebbe's a tzaddik.
Okay, so...
Okay.
What I'm saying
continue.
Is that if I am feeling bad about myself,
Yes.
I'm not aware necessarily that it's the Yetzer Hara doing it.
Oh, that's what we're learning. That's what Rabbi Nassan's teaching us right now.
Know, but what I'm
He's
saying is
teaching
many
us how to
people, when
devise
they
his
feel
way.
bad-
But that's why we're learning. This is what we're learning. We're trying to understand these things.
I know, but I'm saying it is. You can tell me it's the Yetzer Hara now while I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
But when I leave this room, I mean, and I will forget that it's the Yetzer Hara doing it. No one else experienced
But
that?
it's but you're capable of, we're all capable of learning how to do better with it.
Yes, but I'm saying
It's-
someone who's not sitting and learning these things.
Of
is not
course,
gonna know.
well, that's why it's so sad for these people. Exactly. This is life. It's giving. Rabbi Nassan's giving us life. He's giving us life. This is the whole point. All the other people are running around. They're going to the psychologists, psychiatrists. They're taking pills. They're taking all that kind of stuff, right? Because they don't understand this. So they can't think. Because when they think, what happens? Oh, I'm bad at this. So they take a pill. So they forget to think. So that way they don't feel bad, right?
Yeah.
But that's the alternative, right? You can have an alternative. That's the alternative. We're learning the natural way, the positive way. All right. So let's see. Yeah. So sometimes when we give our own self-rebuke, and I start to think about those things that I did that I'm not so proud of. I start to think of those things that were not my greatest moments. But wait a second. We learned this in Tanya, the Tabala Tanya teaches us this too, that there's a certain hour in the day, that you devote to talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in that hour, during that hour, you can tell the Rebbeinu Shalom whatever you want. Wake up whatever you want, discuss whatever you want, whatever right things, wrong things, whatever you have in your mind, you discuss it during that hour. That's the hour of his bodedut. That hour you're free to speak. But once that hour is over, any of those thoughts that come into our mind, I have to discharge them. And then we say, what does the Tanya say? Excuse me, we will discuss this, but the court is closed now. The court is now closed. The court will be reopened tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, at this hour. We can discuss it then. But now the court is closed. Right? How many times have you gone to a place, right? If you called up a place and they tell them, sorry, we're closed now. Right? These are all the mushal for the nimshal. Why do we have to know that? Why do we have to go to a place and they tell, well, we're closed now, I can't help you now? Because I need to know that when those thoughts come in my mind that are not going to lead me to in a positive path, I have to know how to discharge those thoughts. How do I discharge those thoughts? That the Yetzer Hara is trying to infuse in me by saying the court's closed now. Tomorrow we'll have a session of his bodedut, and at that session we can discuss it. We'll be open to discuss it. You understand?
I'm not going to discuss it with him.
No. You discuss it with Hashem.
Right.
You discuss it with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And then that's the proper time. But you'll notice when you do that, you're going to think of good things. Because you have a way to safeguard yourself to not go down that dark road. You have a safeguard to keep you in the right path, to keep you on the derech hayashar. You understand? Does this make sense? Do you agree with this? Or want to have any comments?
Totally.
Well, somehow I think I've needed to add, I have to forgive myself somehow. I have to find a way to forgive myself.
That's Chuva. That's doing Chuva. That's how you forgive yourself. You forgive yourself by doing Chuva. By the recognition, when you recognize, especially during the Hisbodedut, when you recognize that you're talking to Hashem, why during that time of Hisbodedut? Why is that the time? Because then you're talking to Hashem. You're devoting your time to Hashem. You don't have your phone. You turn your phone off, the smartwatch, you turn it off, you turn all these things off. It's just you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no distractions. You find a nice room, you take a walk, you're in the forest, you take a walk, wherever you are, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. And people have told me what they like to do is they'll walk in the street, they'll put on headphones connected to nothing. They'll put on headphones connected to nothing. They just put on their headphones, they can walk in the street talking, And people think that they're having a business conversation. They're talking to their friend. They're talking to whatever they're doing.
See, the bag ladies in New York could have taught us something.
Yeah.
They were probably talking to Hashem when they were walking.
You never know. But that's okay. So now, Sheroim Shasa, Sha'oz, Shechiach Harbe, Shenoifel Oid Yoisa V'Yoisa. At that time, Shazai Shechiach Harbe, you're going to forget a lot, and you're going to fall down more and more. You'll just keep falling. It's like the person he falls on the step, that first step, and it's a long staircase. So just keep going down that staircase. He'll get really hurt. You understand? He's going to get really hurt. That's why you can understand this. In other words, you're standing on a staircase that has 100 steps, right? And the Yetzer, what's he trying to do? He's trying to make you lose your balance. He wants you to fall. He wants you to fall really bad. That's why those thoughts are popping into our head. But we learned that a person can only have one thought at a time. Remember that? We learned that a person can only have one thought at a time. One thought. A person will say, what do you mean? How could you tell me that? I could think of many things. Yeah, you can think of many things, but not at one time. You can only process one thought at a time in your mind. You can't think of two things at one time. You cannot. That's why even computers today, right? You have a single processor, a dual processor, a quad processor, right? Right? Why is that? Because if you want the computer to do multiple tasks simultaneously, then what you have to do is you have to have other chips in there. One chip can't do it. You understand? So this is the point that we're learning. You don't want to take that fall. You don't want to take that spiritual fall. Because your person's going to fall in his mind. He's going to have a chalisha sadas. He's going to bring him to a bad place. Why do you want to go to that bad place? There's so many people that fell so much so this way because they don't know how to safeguard themselves. They don't know how to safeguard their thoughts to keep them thinking the right way. And again, this is in the chapter of tzitzis, because again, we said when we see the tzitzis, it guides me. It connects me back to the Rebbeinu Shlem. It makes me understand, it helps me understand what's important in my life, what's important for my soul. That's what the tzitzis can do.
But it seems to me we're also, the thing that helps me is I'm asking myself the question, okay, for what is this happening now? What is the Yetzer Hara trying to do? Because that's from Hashem also. And
That's a test.
What?
It's a test. Yes, of course, Hashem tells the Yetzer Hara. Of course, wait a second, of course. It's all the Rebbeinu Shlem. Right. This is a test. So what am I going to do? What are you going to do now? Are you going to believe does a person believe in Chuva? Do we believe in Chuva? It's a mitzvah to do Chuva. Do we believe in that mitzvah?
Right, but
because when the Yetzer Hara comes and attacks me, he's telling you, listen, you can't come back. See what you did? You did this, and this, and this, and this. How are you ever going to come back? So that means that he's a heretic. He wants you to be a heretic, not believing that I can do Chuva, that I can return. You understand? I can return.
Yes.
No matter what I did, I can return. Hashem wants me to return.
I agree. And sometimes it helps me to know for what reason. I didn't do tzedakah that month, and I know that's why this happened. And
No.
For me,
No.
I do know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I understand. We said we don't know.
Okay, fine. You think you know.
Doesn't
You may
matter. If it
think
helps
you
me,
know.
it doesn't matter.
Fine. That's okay. Fine. If that's a device that works for you, that's fine. So give more tzedakah. That can't hurt. That can never hurt. Give more tzedakah. Good. Give it to BRI. Reb Chaim really needs the money to print these Likutei Halachas. Okay? בכל זה נמשך מבחינס התיכיך שאיני קרויו שמחלשס koyach haneshama. It weakens the koyach haneshama. When you give that rebuke and it's not a worthy, you're not doing it in a worthy way. You're doing it in a negative way. You're weakening the neshama. That's all you wind up doing. And then you wake up the stenches. You stoke all of those things, those terrible stenches of all of those sins again. You revisit them. And you think, oh, how did I get involved in this, that, and the other thing? But again, if you do it in the right time, every one of those wrong things can be uplifted and transformed into merits. Every one of them. That's why the Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to ever do that. He never wants you to do that. He wants you to be knocked down by them, not elevated by the things that he caused you to do wrong, that he made you stumble in. You understand? This is what he's doing. This is the most clever device that we can have here. You understand? In other words, the Yetzer Hara wants to knock me down. Why does he want to knock me down? So I can stay down. But if I understand there's such a thing of Chuva, and I understand that if I do this in the right way, and I understand that the Yetzer Hara confused me, and I didn't recognize you, Hashem. I forgot you, Hashem, and I recognize that. When I come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I do that Chuva, through Chuva Me'ahava, all of those iniquities can now become merits. All of them. He doesn't want us to have that. He doesn't want us to redeem all of those wrongdoings, all of those iniquities. He doesn't want us to be able to redeem them. He wants them to stay as iniquities. He doesn't want them to become merits. So he's going to constantly pop these ideas in your head to not let you do the tshuva the right way, so you can't transform all of those iniquities. Do you understand?
Yeah. I respectfully disagree with. But I think there's an add-on.
Add it on. Let's go.
You don't agree with me though.
Oh, add it on.
If I get angry,
yeah,
and I don't think about what made me angry, so that I can. That is something that's from Hashem. My getting angry.
Yes.
Because the Yetzer Hara is from Hashem. That makes me angry. And he wants me to think about, part of Chuva, to me, is recognizing it was a weak thing in me that got me angry because I was taking it personally, and I have to...
Right, so before you arrived at our class, about 2 months ago, we was discussing this a lot. This idea, can I get upset at somebody? Should I get upset when somebody tells me something? Or do I understand that really that person told me that thing only because that was a test from Hashem?
Yeah.
And when I understand that was a test from Hashem, how am I going to react to that? Then I say to the person, it's okay. Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it, and you have a very good day. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, anytime someone tells you something that you don't like, and you tell them, thank you, you should have a very good day. Wow, they'll feel very stupid. Give them a blessing. Bless them. You're a kohen, give them a blessing. Give them a blessing. Give them your priestly blessing. Give it to them. Why? Because they'll say, wow, what did I just do? Why am I doing this to this guy?
So and
then you feel good, because now you said the Birchas Kahanim. You did a mitzvah. You did a mitzvah. Rabbi Nachman says in Sichas Haran, if a person, you realize that something went wrong, you did something wrong. The person realizes that, okay, Chasam, you did something wrong that day. What do you do right away? Do a mitzvah. Do something. Give a shekel for tzedakah. Say a pasuk in Chumash. Say Shema. Say a kapitel Tehillim. Do something good. Why? Because you want to break the pattern. In other words, when a person does an aveira, so one aveira is geireres, another aveira causes the next aveira, right? Causes the next one. Rabbi Nachman explains, when you do an aveira, what are you doing? You're creating a malach ra. You're creating a dark angel. The dark angel says, hey, you made me, you have to take care of me. How do you take care of me? Do something wrong, make another angel. So Rabbi Nachman says, if you realize, chas v'shalom, someone did something wrong, right away do a mitzvah, break that pattern. So then it'll be mitzvah geireres mitzvah, so that good angel say, do another one. But then you'll remember that thing that went wrong during your isbodedut that day, or tomorrow, whenever that'll be, you'll speak about it. You'll ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to forgive you. Or at night, when you're saying Kriya Shema Lamita, before you go to sleep, and you say the Kriya Shema, when you're saying the Vidui, in the Kriya Shema Lamita, you're reminded, and over there. And that's a proper time to do it. but not just randomly. That's the point that we're learning. There are designated times that we're allowed to be judgmental on ourselves. We should be judgmental on ourselves, but only during those designated times. Only during those designated times. That's the point. That's the point. And doing it during those times, because then we have a license to do it. And when you do something, when you're licensed, it can go much better, right? Right? If you're licensed, you have more responsibility, right? So therefore, there's really no one that's worthy to really rebuke themselves because, again, we're very judgmental. So then if that's the case, how could I judge somebody else? Where do I have the right? If I can't even judge myself in the right way, how can I look at somebody else and judge the other person in a proper way? How can I do that? Unless I connect myself to the tzadikim. If I connect myself to the tzadikim and the teachings of the tzadikim and the tzadikim of the generation, and I connect myself to them and I'm with those people and I learn from them, so then I can understand, I see Hashem more in my life. That's the point. In other words, when you have the teachings of the tzaddikim, you start to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your daily life more. You start to experience, have a relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's not abstract. You're living with it. You can learn to live with the Rebbeinu Shalom when you can, so then you see things in a different way. Everything looks different in the world. The world doesn't look like that dark, ugly place. It can be. It can be. And most people in the world today, if you ask them, they'll tell you it's a dark, ugly place. But it could be the most bright place, while it's a dark, ugly place to the other guy. Because when I understand that everything in the world is really Hashem's plan, it's all you, Hashem. You're just doing this to test me. The same way Yitzchak, right, was able to laugh, right? Isaac was able to laugh, right? How was Isaac able to laugh? He's the midah of gvura. He's the midah of judgment. He's laughing. You know why? Because he understands that all of the judgment in his life, and in Klal Yisrael's life, is only because it's Hashem. He sees Hashem right through the din. Right through the din. And that's why the Gemara says, before Mashiach comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to go to Avram Avinu. And he's going to say to Avram Avinu, look, your children made a lot of sins. You did a lot of things wrong. What are we supposed to do about it? They're chayav a lot of things. They're very obligated because of all of the things they did wrong. So Abraham is going to say, listen, if they did something wrong, so that you do the crime, you do the time, right? That's the expression, right? You do the crime, do the time, right? So they'll have to. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to go to Yaakov Avinu, and he'll tell Yaakov Avinu, look, your children from the Shiftei Kah, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren, look what they did. And he'll say, so what am I supposed to do if they did something wrong? But then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to go to Yitzchak Avinu, and he'll tell the same thing to Yitzchak Avinu. And when he tells it to Yitzchak Avinu, you know what Yitzchak Avinu is going to say? Palga alai v'palga alach. I'll take half of the burden, and you take, Hashem, half of the burden. I'll take upon myself half of the burden, and you take upon yourself half of the burden. Only Yitzchak can do that. Not Avraham Avinu, not Chesed. It's not the Titveres. It's the Gvura. Why? Because Yitzchak Avinu understands. It's all you, Hashem. You want to blame my children? You think it's their fault? No, Hashem. I know it was you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you had the Yetzer Hara that was so strong that caused them to make these mistakes. Yitzchak Avinu could tell that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not their fault. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you set the system up.
I'm not completely there.
You set this system up. That's why it's not complete. That's why he says, I'll take half, and you take half. Very good, Sasha. That's why he says, I'll take half, and you take half. Yeah, unbelievable. And that's how we'll be redeemed. That's how we're going to be redeemed. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that Yitzchak Avinu is going to say that, this is, again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the system set up. Every single thing is so perfectly designed. We don't understand it. You know, the example I like to always give is, if you take a tapestry, you like to see a nice tapestry? You know these nice tapestries. They're beautiful, some of them, right? So if I would show you the back of it, right? If I would show you, I wouldn't show you the front of it. I would only show you the back of it. That's ugly. All those knots and all of those things, and all the colors don't work. It's just a big mess. And that's how the world looks today. The world looks like a big mess. But if you understand that really this is the backside, and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really a miller making this most gorgeous tapestry, which is what the world is going to be. The world is going to be the most beautiful place when Mashiach comes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal the tapestry. So you thought it was this and this. Look at this. You see this knot? You see this problem? You see this thing? Look what it was on the other side. Look how beautiful it is. This is what we understand. You understand? So, in other words, we have to understand that not only can if I'm honest with myself, I realize I can't rebuke myself in a positive way. I can't rebuke myself in a positive way, if I'm honest. And if I say that, so then how can I ever rebuke somebody else? If I can't rebuke myself in a positive way, how can I rebuke somebody else in a positive way? And we learned already the negative effects of rebuking someone in a negative way. We saw how terrible it is. You wake up all of the stench of all of the iniquities. It's a terrible thing. You don't want to do that. But if you connect yourself to the tzadikim, so then you learn that there's such a thing as visbaidados. You learn there's such a thing of Kriya Shema Lamita. You say the Kriya Shema before you go to bed. You understand that. You understand that there's a certain designated times that I can do that. And those times that I do rebuke myself, I understand because I learned it from the tzadikim, because I'm connected to the teachings of the tzadikim. I'm connected to the tzadikim, so then things can go in the right way. I can then work on changing over all of the iniquities and turning them into merits. And that's the program that we're trying to do. We're trying to turn all of the iniquities into the merits. And that's why David HaMelech was given 70 years by Adam Rishon, because Adam Rishon made the first fatal mistake. He made the mistake. Adam Rishon made that first fatal mistake. He did it. Was it his fault? Who knows? Was it Chava's fault? Who knows? Was it the snake's fault? Sure it was.
It was half-half.
Huh?
It was half-half.
Half-half? No, I want to blame it all on the snake. Let's blame it all on the snake.
Half the Mauritian, half the Hashem.
Yeah, okay, but I want to blame it all on the snake. I put it all on that snake.
Who created the snake?
Hashem created the snake. But it's the snake. No, but wait a second. You know that the Zohar says that Adam Rishon could have just said to Hashem, I'm sorry. He could have just said, I'm sorry, and everything would have been all fixed. Chava could have said, I'm sorry, and that could have all been fixed. So you know what we learn from that? All we have to do is say, Hashem, I'm sorry. Don't blame anyone. Don't blame him. Don't blame this one. Don't blame that one. Take the responsibility during this, and you say, I'm sorry. That's it. That's all Hashem wants. Us to recognize we've made a mistake and be honest. He wants us to be honest. That's it. I'm sorry. And that can fix everything if we say it in a sincere way. And sometimes even if you don't say it in a sincere way, but you say you're sorry, it helps to some effect. If you can't really believe it. But if you can, during this, you have a real beautiful session with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you're really opened up, and you really say you're sorry, wow. That can be the most what's the right word to use? I don't know. The most blissful feeling that a person can have.
Relief.
The most relief a person can have when they realize that. But then don't forget, as soon as you finish, the HR will come back and attack you again. You say, too bad. Done. You have the thing of due process, right? You know what due process is? Right? What is due process? You can't be tried for the same crime twice, right? Is that due process?
Double jeopardy.
Double jeopardy? What's due
That's
process? What's same
it's
thing?
Double jeopardy. You can't be tried for
Double
the same
jeopardy?
crime
Not
twice.
due process? No? Okay, double jeopardy. We like that one too. Double jeopardy. You can't be tried for the same thing twice. You can't be tried for the same crime twice. So if you just charge yourself for it, it's done. It's over. It's over. The trial's over. You don't entertain that ever again. because it's done.
And it's wiped clean.
It's wiped clean. But then there's also an idea of tshuva ala tshuva, right? There's also a concept of tshuva ala tshuva. What does that mean? To do tshuva on the tshuva, right? You know what that concept is? Doing tshuva on the tshuva. See, when you know, if you meet somebody that you don't know who he is, right? You meet, let's say, a person works in a big company, right? And he doesn't know who the boss is. He doesn't know who the boss is, and he's standing in the elevator, right? And he has his cup of coffee, and he spills it all over this guy. He says, "I'm sorry." He said, "I'm sorry." Right? Then he finds out, you know, he's new in the company. He finds out that that's the boss. He finds that that's the boss. He finds that that's the boss that I just spilled the coffee on. Wow. He goes over to the boss and says, "Boy, am I sorry. Boy, am I sorry," right? Because he didn't know who he was. He just, "I'm sorry." So then when we start to learn Torah, and when we understand what we did wrong, when we have our espodas, during those times, not random times, during those set aside times. So then I realized, wait a second, I realized how grave that sin that I did was. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how terrible that sin was. And Hashem, I'm sorry the way I apologized to you. I'm sorry the way I apologized. I want to apologize in a better way now because I understand the gravity of this sin that I did. That's a beautiful thing to do. That a person can always do. But again, during those times, and that's tshuva ala tshuva. Hashiveinu Hashem elecha v'nashuva. Right? We put away the Torah, we say those words. Hashiveinu Hashem elecha, return me to you, Hashem, v'nashuva, and return me again. But wait a minute, you just returned me. So Chazal learn out tshuva ala tshuva. You have to do tshuva on the way you did tshuva. You do tshuva on the way because I didn't recognize you, Hashem. I didn't really know you that well. But now that I know you, I really have to say I'm sorry once again. I have to really apologize because now I'm beginning to understand who you are a little bit, Hashem. I still know I have no inkling of you, Hashem. But I thought I knew everything about you. And now I realize I don't know anything about you because I'm trying to understand you, Hashem. And then when you do that and you say tshuva, that's an amazing thing. Now the Rebbe says like this: Sheheim b'chinas Moshe, because all the tzadikim of the generation, they're an aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Any of the tzadikim, the true tzadikim, amitim, they are an aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu because they help to guide the Jewish people in the right way, which is the same way Moshe Rabbeinu did. Moshe Rabbeinu guided the people in that way. They can rebuke and do it with a voice. They can do it in that most beneficial way. The most beneficial way, they know how to do it, to talk to the person, to benefit the person. You know, the greatest way I want to tell you that I learned about 30 years from Rabbi Moshe Weinberger Zalzanges, and he always would say like this: if you see somebody doing something wrong and it really bothers you, you know, because again, we're human beings, so we you know, what are we supposed to do? Right? We saw something, it bothered us. So I understand it was Hashem, and I understand, okay, I got that. But yeah, I still see that the person, it bothered me. So what do I do? So you can go over to the person and say like this: hey, I just learned in my halacha shir this morning. I want to tell you a new dvar halacha that I learned. I want to tell you some nice new law that I just learned. The law says like this: the law, this, and this, and this. You tell him that the law that you just learned was what he just did wrong. But you don't tell him he did anything wrong. You tell him about the law that you learned. Then he may say to himself, wait a second. Wow, I didn't know that I did that wrong. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do that. He'll say that on his own. He'll perceive that on his own based on the teaching that you just gave him. But you didn't say you did anything wrong. I learned the law today. I want to share it with you. Then the person, why? Because a person always is very defensive, right? We get the very defensive. If someone comes over to us and tells us something, our egos become very defensive.
It's
but
the stench, right?
Right? It's a stench. Yeah, it could be the stench. Yeah. And that's the ego. Yeah, that's the ego. Yeah, that's the ego. But if I don't come over to the person and I don't provoke his ego, I just want to teach him. So I want to tell you something that I learned. I want to tell you something nice. To tell a guy a certain story that will help him understand via the story, the thing that he'll perceive that. Wow, that's the best way to do it. And that's the way the tzadikim do it. That's the way the tzaddikim, they rebuke. They don't go direct head on to the person. They go in a very nonchalant way. They go in a very, a very interesting way, but they don't go head on with the person. They don't fight with the person's ego, because that'll never, ever work. It'll never, ever work, because the person becomes very defensive. He'll never hear what you have to say. And it'll just become a big fight. It'll become a big yelling match. It won't work. It will never work. Because Moshe Rabbeinu has the kol hashir, the voice of song. That can add and that can give a reach tov. That can make a beautiful scent. That can make those iniquities now smell very nice, because he's doing it in that way. Because the whole main idea of the teichacha has to be in the way of shir shel chesed. Remember the chut shel chesed we're learning about, right? The chesed, the tzitzis, 72, right? So the rebuke has to be in the way of a song of chesed. It has to be a song of kindness. Tahainu lahata is klape chesed. You have to turn towards chesed. Shu bechinas azam lelekai ba'oidi. Oh, these are the most beautiful words. I will praise you and sing to Hashem the way I am now. As long as I'm still alive, I'm here now. And the way I am now, I will now sing to you, Hashem. It doesn't matter where I find myself, what I did. It doesn't matter. However I am, I will sing to you, Hashem. It doesn't matter. Sometimes that's the most beautiful song to Hashem. Why would that be the most beautiful song? Because if the person did all of the things wrong, but that person can still sing to Hashem, Hashem says, wow. Hashem says, wow. This person that's so far away can still turn to me? That's so pleasing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He loves that. However I am, I'll sing to you, Hashem. I'll sing to you. I'll make right everything. Everything will get fixed. I know, Hashem, you're going to help me to fix all of those things. You will help me. I know that, because I'm going to sing to you, Hashem. Amazing idea. David HaMelech. Hanema b'divrei Rabbeinu Zal, ayin sham kol inyan. Oh, wow. Reish Pei Beis. That's the whole lesson of Hazamra, the whole Torah. We spend so much time in the beginning of our lessons of Likutei Halachas, right? Shetzarach adam l'nsayah b'atzmai eze zechus v'nekuda taiva. Find some positive nekuda, some positive point in yourself. Find that you did something good. Focus on something that you did good. That's based on the Torah Hazamra. Oh, wow. V'chein. Find something good about your friend. Oh, your friend he just helped somebody. You know, he did something nice. He I don't know. He called somebody. He gave someone whatever. So find something good. Find a nekuda taiva in your friend. Right, in your friend. Bechinas v'oid ma'at ve'ein rasha. Like we learned that yes, it may be bad, but there's always a little bit that's not bad. There's always a little bit. There's a little bit that's not bad. That's how a person can go, can mamish come to the side of merit. He can mamish bring himself, and he can bring others to the side to be meritorious. They can become meritorious through finding the nekuda taiva, through finding that goodness. Don't focus on the bad in yourself. Focus on something good, a good point. I gave the charity. Not that I didn't give enough charity. I gave this charity. I did this. Yes, I want to do more, and I will do more. But focus on what I did do. Focus on the positive. Don't focus on the negative. The negative is all from the Yetzer Hara. Anything of negativity has to be dealt with, but when? During those designated times of his Baidus, Kriya Shema Lamita, those designated times, you could deal with something of negativity. But all the other times, the 23 other hours of the day, it has to be all positive, all good, All positive. You look at yourself in a good way. You look at everybody else in a good way. You judge yourself in a favorable way. You judge everyone else in a favorable way. Because by doing that, you bring them to the side of meritus. You bring yourself to that way, and you mamish connect yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because we learn that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved in everything in the world. He does everything. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu does himself. Whatever that means. Anything of goodness, Hashem does himself. Anything that's not seemingly good, he has angels to do for him. He doesn't get involved in those other things. He has his angels to do that. But anything good, Hashem does himself. And when I connect myself to something good, and I connect others to something good, I'm connecting myself and my friends to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what greater protection can a person have by being connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Does it make sense? So that's why we understand now. So just to recap what we said. That there's in other words, the Yetzer Hara is constantly trying to cause us to feel down, and he wants to always knock us down. And how do we fortify ourselves against that? By looking at the tzitzis in the morning. When we take out our tzitzis and we see those strings, and we understand the 72, we learned that so many times, right? The chesed, right? The chut shel chesed, the strings of the harp of Mashiach Tzidkenu, 72. I can connect to the Kisei HaKavod, all this positive stuff, all from my tzitzis. Like we say, I look at the tzitzis, I can remember all of the mitzvahs. I remember everything. I can remember everything. Where do all those negative things come from? Because I looked and I heard and I involved myself in things that I shouldn't have involved myself in. But when the tzitzis helps me remember, wait a second, what did I do? Like the story you told us yesterday, right? The guy was about to go and involve himself with a harlot, right? And when the tzitzis banged him in it, whoa, woke him up. The tzitzis woke him up. Let the tzitzis wake us all up and let us find something good in ourselves. Let us find something good in everybody else and have a great day. Kol tov.
Amen.